My name's Ted Flickinger. I'm the Executive Director of IAPD, and I have a great opportunity today to interview one of our legends, one of the few that we have in Illinois that has had a tremendous impact on park districts and parks and recreation in this state. Ralph Cianchetti has been a commissioner. Ralph, how long?
For the past 17 years.
17 years in Highland Park. Ralph has been deeply involved with the IAPD. I think has served on almost every committee that we have in the association. He has been the officer of the association and president of the association and a recipient of the most coveted award that we give for commissioners, the Alan A. Weisberg Commissioner of the Year Award. And Ralph, we've congratulated you on a number of times for your accomplishments, and that's why we're happy that you can spend a little bit of time with us today. But what started you out in this field? I mean, how did you get motivated to become a commissioner in the first place?
It's really a story. It's a very kind of a self-serving story, really. I was president of the men's club at the Sunset Valley Golf Course, which is the Park District of Highland Park golf course, and the course had suffered terribly from Dutch elm disease. And as president, I kept going to the park board wondering what their tree planting plan was, and I never could get any satisfaction. So the men's club suggested that maybe I should run for the park board. I might be able to get things done, and that's what happened. And I ran against 4 candidates. I was one of those elected, and 17 years later, here I still am. And I'm pleased to report, by the way, that we now have an absolutely magnificent golf course. And
I was going to say,
if I may seem immodest, I hope to take a lot of credit for that.
Well, I would say that there's a lot of trees on the course now.
There certainly are.
I've hit a few of them. So you're still involved today, 17 years later, and when you reflect back, what have been the most enjoyable things for you?
Well, obviously, to watch what happened with our golf course. And generally speaking, without naming names or casting aspersions, just simply a change of direction. The Park District was not in the best of shape when I came aboard. Certainly, I would not like to suggest that I was one of those that turned the direction around, but I helped. And we got involved, Ernie Nance, whom a lot of people in Parks and Recreation know, and now our new director, Connie Newport, with concerned boards. We really turned it around for the Park District of Highland Park and did a lot of good things. Redeemed our skating rink, built a tennis center. We've been in the process over the years of rebuilding virtually every tot lot play yard park that we have in the district, and we've just about come to the end of that. It's been a decade's work, and I'm very pleased and proud to have been a part of all of that.
So you're going to leave a lot when you do leave being a commissioner, being involved. There's a lot that you can look back on.
Absolutely.
As major
I anticipate that at the end of my current term, which is next April, I probably won't run for re-election. 18 years is a long time, but I certainly can look back on my involvement with an enormous sense of pride. It has been a truly, truly important part of my life.
That brings up something to mind. What is the right time? I mean, each person would know for themselves. Some people say, well, 10 years is plenty, and other people say 22 years is plenty.
I think it's up to the individual. I think as long as you're still enjoying what you're doing, as long as you're making a contribution, I don't think you can serve too long. The minute you become a thorn in people's side, the minute you become an obstacle, the minute you stand in the way of progress, you become a troglodyte, then I think it's time to go. But unfortunately, we frequently don't know that time has come. We think we're right, and even though we're obstructionists, we hang around. But I think as long as you can continue to make a contribution, as long as you're open-minded about what you're doing, you're not defending some little narrow position, you're an effective commissioner.
What then would you say is, after all these years, I know your philosophy's probably changed through the years a little bit and as you gain more knowledge about Parks and Recreation, but what do you really think is the role of the commissioner? What was your philosophy of being a commissioner?
Well, I think if you're going to elect to stand as a commissioner, I'm sure there are a million reasons why people elect to run for park boards, but you've got to believe in the value of Parks and Recreation. You've got to believe that Parks and Recreation are an absolutely crucial component of community life and of individual life. If you believe that, you can come in and get some good work done. So I think if you start from that point of view, if you don't come in because you want to see better ball diamonds or better soccer teams or whatever the case may be, but you do have a commitment to the overall quality of parks and recreation in your own local community, I think you can be an enormously effective commissioner.
Obviously, you believe that being involved in IAPD is important because you've been involved on every committee and as an officer and on the board and as president. Why do you feel that's important?
Well, a long time ago, the poet John Donne wrote, "No man is an island," and no park district stands alone. I mean, if we take just legislation alone, and we've got to remember that park districts are creatures of the state legislature. So we have to stand together to be sure that the legislation that comes out of Springfield isn't detrimental to park districts. I think that's one reason to belong to the association. Another reason is you learn a great deal from talking to fellow commissioners, either formally or informally, about what they're doing, what their problems are, what the solutions have been. And I think your own personal growth is materially enhanced simply by getting to know people from around the state who share the same interests that you do. You say, from every point of view, involvement in the state association is beneficial.
Let me break right here. I need to do a cough. I couldn't. You haven't started yet, have you?
I have.
Oh.
Anytime you want to begin, feel free to begin.
So after being a commissioner for 17 years, what advice do you have for new commissioners? People just coming in to this role of serving their community and their state.
Well, I think that's it. I think come in, take on the task, not with the idea that you're going to correct. Well, obviously a district can go astray and maybe you can come aboard and help make some corrections, but your whole involvement needs to be on a positive basis. You need to want better parks, better recreation for your community. I don't think you're an effective commissioner if you come aboard, you're only going to serve the soccer folks, or you're only going to worry about the baseball program, or you're going to be concerned about the golf course. And I have a feeling that just simply by the nature of the operation of a park district, if a commissioner comes aboard with a narrow interest, very shortly that narrow interest broadens into something bigger, because that's the way, the nature of the business. You are forced to take on all kinds of concerns and problems, and you can't remain a narrow commissioner, because in very short order you're going to be isolated. Your board is going to be 4-1 or 7-1. You'll always find yourself the no vote. So
I've been with the association, as you know, for the last 15 years, and I don't know of many other commissioners, a handful, that are more respected than Ralph Cianchetti, especially by the professionals in Parks and Recreation all across the country. Ralph, what do you see as, you've met a lot of professionals in your career in Parks and Recreation. What kind of qualities stand out the most, in your opinion, of being a top-notch professional in this field?
I think one of the factors about the professionals that I've met that I truly enjoy and admire is their lack of selfishness. Suggest a project, and man, people come out of the woodwork to work on it. A committee is formed immediately, and invariably the work of the committee is effective and productive. So they are a tremendous group of people. When I consider that they work for not the best of wages, they're asked to put in some incredible hours. They're in the parks on Sundays, they're there at night. They're simply a great group of people, and I think I'd like to believe, at any rate, the very fact that they are involved with recreation keeps them what they are.
So that strong commitment, you see that in
And without that kind of a commitment, a professional can't be particularly good. But I'm amazed at the amount of, for example, when we do our golf outing in the summer, they come out from everywhere. As a matter of fact, I understand they get on a waiting list to be volunteers for that particular outing, and they're running the registration desk and various aspects on the course. They're coming from everywhere. Or the work they do on the state conference. People generally don't understand the enormous effort that goes into that state conference. And, most of that work is done by the professionals. They're simply a great group of people.
Now, obviously, you've, as a great example and a model for other commissioners, you have been very involved in the legislative process for IAPD, and you obviously feel that's very important. Where do you see that role, though, in working with the legislators?
Well, I think, in my view, that's probably one of your top priorities as a park commissioner. I think you need to understand, as I said at the outset, that we depend on the legislature. We do what we can do because the legislature permits us to do it, or says that we can't do it. And therefore, we really need to know what's happening in the political realm. We need to know what the legislature is up to. And we need to make sure that at least, at the very least, that our state senator, that our local representative knows us on a first name basis. I think if you don't know your state representative on a first name basis, you're not doing your job as a commissioner.
Well, Ralph, you know, there's been books written. There's been a lot of lectures around the country. This thing, reinventing government, and depending on who you talk to, there's a variety of different definitions for reinventing government. We know that here in Illinois, the park district system is a special district. It has some special districts have been under attack about having too much government in Illinois. Some legislators have talked in the past 15 years about consolidation of certain governments. How do you feel about all that?
Well, I think there's a lot of merit in the argument that we've got too much government in the state of Illinois. But I don't know that I would put park districts in that category, and I think I'm speaking objectively when I say this. If you buy the argument, as I do, that parks and recreation are an absolutely vital service to the community, as vital as, let's say, education, and I buy that argument, then you do need a separate branch of government to provide those services. This is not to say that there aren't some communities with recreation departments that aren't enjoying outstanding recreational services. Evanston comes to mind, Lake Forest in Illinois, Bloomington in Illinois, they have outstanding parks and recreation programs. But I think by and large, when you have a form of government that has an elected board with the specific charge of providing parks and recreation services to the community, when they have the financial resources for doing it, I think those services tend to be of a better quality than perhaps a recreation department, because, like it or not, in a recreation department, the Parks and Recreation is always going to come after the police and the firemen and the roads and the sewers and all those kinds of things. And in my view, I think the Parks and Recreation enjoys a much higher priority. People want good recreational opportunities, and I think it takes that form of government to do it. And I think what we have in Illinois is the envy of the nation, and I think maybe that's enough said.
Do you feel, being a commissioner, has any of your personal needs? I mean, when we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs of people, for socialization, for a lot of other things, has there been anything personal, or has it just been all giving and no receiving?
Oh, there's been an enormous, as I've said time and again, whenever I've gotten one of these awards, my standard speech is, I've gotten a lot more from my service than I ever gave. And when I was elected to the board, I was at that stage of life where I was asking myself, well, I've been a teacher for all these many years, and where do we go from here? And all of a sudden, being a member of a park board gave me a whole new perspective, a whole new hold on life, a whole new arena in which to operate, a whole bunch of new things to do that I believed in, that I enjoyed doing, and it's been a fulfilling, broadening, totally enriching experience. I've gotten a whole lot more from my service as a commissioner than anything I've ever done for Parks and Recreation.
People that are involved in the park districts today know that Ralph Cianchetti had a tremendous impact, and when he was president of this organization, the crown jewel of your administration was really the building that we're setting in today. We have headquarters that are 100 yards from the front door of the Capitol. Ralph, we have you to thank, and the board of directors at that time, for your foresight. You know, it's just been a tremendous growth. But what do you see in the future for IAPD and park districts?
Well, I think IAPD has a vital role to play. First of all, we're all aware of the fact that the scramble for public resources is intense. The public dollars are getting harder to come by, and I think if Parks and Recreation are going to get their fair share of the dollars, they're going to have to be represented in some collective manner. Sure, we have to band together to be sure that those who make those dollars possible truly understand what our mission is and what the kinds of resources it's going to take to carry out that mission. And I don't see how we can do it unless we do it in some collective way. And therefore, you know, the Illinois Association of Park Districts, I think that's an important role that we play. I think, too, there are lots and lots of problems that are coming down the road that parks are going to have to play a role in solving. You know, the drug problem, the child abuse problems, the various disasters that are befalling the American family. I think parks are increasingly are going to, fair or not, are going to be asked to play a role in helping to solve those problems. And I think that if we come together, talk with one another about what it is we do or what we can do, what we need, share our successes, share our failures. I think that that's going to be enormously helpful in meeting that challenge. And again, I think the association can play a role there. I think, to put it another way, it's a lot more comfortable to know that you're one of 300 or whatever, however many agencies are now members of IAPD, rather than you stand alone against all the stresses and strains of the political and financial world. There's strength in numbers, and that's why I think we need to have an association.
Lately, Ralph, since you went off the IAPD board and went to the National Recreation and Parks Association board, I know that being on the board with you, you were instrumental in forming the Leisure and Aging section of NRPA. And you were also very involved in AARP now. And so obviously there's a great relationship between what park districts do and the senior citizens of our society in Illinois. Can you tell us a little bit about your involvement there, and what kind of visions you see for the future?
Well, my involvement, I'm a senior citizen. I mean, I'm 68 years old, and therefore I want to see that the kinds of services that I need are available. Whatever it is, golf courses, fitness centers, walking programs, theater, all the kinds of things that older folks enjoy and help keep them in fine fettle. I want to see that they happen. I think we have to recognize that the country's getting older. I mean, it's a reality. I think that as a political reality, park districts need to recognize that we are no longer a children's agency. Most people tend to think of recreation as something that's for kids. Let's face it, only 28% of America's households send kids to school, which means there are only 28% of those same households are sending kids to our camp programs and our various other park programs. So we're going to have to start thinking very seriously about what do we offer our local senior citizens. And let's not forget another factor. Among all of those who vote, senior citizens vote most heavily. And if you're going to have their support in any referenda you may try to pass, or if you want their political support at the state or national level, you're going to have to be sure that you take them into account when you plan your program, when you parcel out your resources. And as I say, that's a growing concern that is not going to go away. And woe betide the district that doesn't acknowledge the existence of the seniors in their midst.
You think the seniors like to be segregated out for specific programs? I mean, they want some of their own programs, but they also want to be part of other type of programs too, don't they?
That's a yes and no. I can give you one small example, and I'm sure it's reasonably typical. We have a senior league on Friday mornings at our golf course. Well, it's growing. Yeah. We started out with about 55, and we're now up to almost 103, 104. And we get a typical Friday morning, we'll get 75 to 80 show up to play golf.
You're competing against people you're
precisely. Group. On the other hand, many of those same individuals, I'm among them, will play golf on Saturday and Sunday, and we get involved in the men's club events, and that involves all ages. So on Friday, I'm competing against guys between 55 and 75. And on Saturday or Sunday, whichever day I play, I'm competing against guys all the way from 18 to 65. So it's a mix, and I like it. I like it that way. I like to rub shoulders with my fellow seniors. On the other hand, I like to be in a situation where I'm competing with all ages. There's a certain pleasure in beating a 19-year-old 2-up in a match. So, and I mean, that works both ways.
Done it to me.
And obviously there are some limitations, and we seniors recognize that we can't compete in basketball and softball, those kinds of sports, in the same manner. You know, in a mixed situation maybe. So increasingly park districts are beginning to offer 3-on-3 basketball and mature softball leagues, but they're for active, involved seniors that are still healthy, still able to run. One of the great experiences I've had in my life, Ted, was being in Baton Rouge, Louisiana last summer to witness the U.S. Senior Games, to see over 7,000 mature athletes competing in a blazing Louisiana sun and doing a great job and having a great fun. It was one of the most fulfilling things I've participated in a long, long time. So that's some sense of the market that we're dealing with when we talk about the senior population.
Ralph, after 17 years being commissioner, when you leave, I can't visualize, because my whole career in Illinois has been with Ralph Cianchetti. And it's going to be hard for me to deal with you not being a commissioner. And I'd just like to know, how would you like to be remembered?
Well, first, Ted, I want to thank you. I mean, you're praising me, overpraising me to the skies, but it's good to hear. It makes us feel good to know that our efforts have gone appreciated. I'm going to miss it. There's no question about it that I will miss the involvement that I've enjoyed over the years. I mean, when you think that local and state and national and going to all sorts of meetings and reading all kinds of materials and phone calls, all that goes with what I've been doing for these past 17 years. And it's been, by and large, very enjoyable, and I feel a productive experience. So, fortunately, about 4 years ago, I stumbled onto a volunteer involvement in AARP, and that seems to be growing by leaps and bounds. Just recently, I was named coordinator for the state of Illinois for a program that I very much enjoy. It's called AARP Vote, which deals with legislation and voter advocacy, and it's right in line with what I've been doing with the legislative council, and I anticipate that at least for the next 5 or 6 years that'll use up my time. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to miss Parks and Recreation, and there'll be a certain amount of grief in closing. But I think, although I'm opposed to term limits, I think that 18 years is a long time, and maybe it's time for me to step aside and let some of the younger people have an opportunity at running the park district in Highland Park.
Well, that's very commendable for you to say, and we would, and I know if we call on you for certain things in the future, you'll come through for us on legislation or other things that we need. But maybe we can get you involved in the foundation board.
Well, let's just call on me.
But you can see that's the Ralph Cianchetti that we've been talking to all day today. Is the kind of person who has volunteered all of his life, and it's what's made America what it is today. It's made our park districts what it is today. And I think one of the things that we have in park districts that no other state has is citizen involvement. We have the only state association for citizens in the country, and there's 2,100 of them. I wish there were 2,100 of them like Ralph Cianchetti.
Well, Ted, I thank you, and I would just simply say to anybody who may be watching this tape that if you are a park commissioner, or if you're contemplating becoming a park commissioner, get yourself involved in something beyond your own district. Find out about the state committees, get involved in those state committees. You'll find it a tremendous experience. You'll do good work, you'll feel good about what you're doing, you'll get to know a lot of fine people, and you'll do a lot of growing in the process. I strongly urge it.
And we have been very grateful for all the volunteerism that you've given, the expertise, the advice. And as I said before, he's been my advisor, he's been my mentor, but most of all, he's been my friend. And Ralph, I know how I'm going to remember you, but how would you like people in Parks and Recreation to remember you?
Well, you know, Ted, I don't know that I'm particularly concerned whether people in Parks and Recreation remember me. It'll be nice to be remembered. It'll be nice for people to say, "Hi, Ralph, how you doing, buddy?" I think I've made my contribution. I've got an enormous amount of satisfaction out of having done it. I can look at some of the things that I've been a part of. For example, as you said, this headquarters, which I think is indeed a fine establishment here in the state capitol. I can look at things in our parks in Highland Park. I can look at the beauty of our golf course. So there's plenty for me to remember, to make the memory of those years a very, very happy kind of remembering. And if people remember me in the process, if people speak well of me in the process, terrific. But I don't look for any park to be named after me or anything else. Moreover, mine's an impossible name to put on a piece of stone anyhow. But I whatever memories I need, I've gotten from my involvement. And if people remember me, that's an extra bonus.
They definitely will. Thank you very much.
Ted, great to talk to you.
My
and
pleasure.
the best of luck on Parks and Recreation for the state of Illinois.
Thank you.